have an idea.
That's your idea?
Yeah.
Here's Johnny.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Jarek Defiler, the Patient Gamer here to take a little break away from discussing my usual topic of video games and instead bringing you all a video on something that I never thought I would say for quite some time. Netflix has actually made a good anime adaptation.
Oh my god.
Now, I enjoy anime a great deal. I wouldn't say I'm a super fan, but I have watched a good amount. Trigun, Akira, and Fullmetal Alchemist have been my favorites for years. I've also watched all of Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, which my wife got me into, God bless her, and I ended up loving them. And as of now, I'm all caught up on Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, and Attack on Titan. However, sometime last year, I was passing through our little two-bedroom apartment when I saw my wife watching a show based on a franchise that I was familiar with, but had never actually partaken in. This show was One Piece, the anime adaptation of the highest-selling manga of all time. So occasionally when passing through, I would stop for a few minutes to check out what was going on in the show and have my wife-explain the plot to me. Over time, I found myself sitting with her and watching a few minutes more, and then more, and more. Eventually, I was hooked. Just like Naruto, my wife got me into what I would now consider to be among my top 5 favorite animes of all time, One Piece. We binged what was at the time all 1,064 episodes over the course of several months, and we had a blast. The characters, the plots, the arcs, the boobies. One Piece is truly a phenomenal anime experience that captivates, intrigues, and just all-out entertains. So thanks to my Honduran mamacita for showing me the light, because One Piece is fucking amazing, and I love it. But imagine my surprise when I stumbled across a trailer for a live-action Netflix adaptation. Whoopee. Netflix has become somewhat of a joke in regards to anime adaptations. I can't comment on most because I had like zero desire to watch them given the backlash and the fact that Netflix tends to cancel them after one season, which is never a good sign. But there really hasn't been very many good ones, as far as I know anyways. In fact, most anime fans seem to only like Rurouni Kenshin when it comes to live action adaptations. Rurouni Kenshin, I don't know. Either way, Netflix doesn't have a great track record here, so when I saw the One Piece live action trailer, I was very much in the camp of meh. But let me tell you, ladies and gents, I was never happier to be more wrong. Too long didn't watch, Netflix's One Piece live action adaptation is fantastic. I won't be giving a background of the franchise and story here because it's simply too big and I don't have the time. Just know it's about a pirate crew taking on various adventures as they make their way towards their individual and conglomerate goals. Also, I will undoubtedly be mispronouncing a plethora of names here, so do forgive me. Now, I went into the show being a big fan of the anime. However, from what I've read and seen in interviews, I believe one of the showrunners, Matt Owens, stated that the Netflix version is mostly based off the manga rather than the anime. Not entirely sure. I've only read the last few dozen issues of the manga, pretty much where the anime is catching up, and from what I've read, the anime seems fairly accurate to the manga. Only difference is that the anime suffers from Dragon Ball Z syndrome, where they have filler episodes where it'll be like 5 episodes in the middle of a fight where nothing really happens and everyone's just standing around talking about fighting rather than just fighting, you know? Or the fight will go on far longer than it needs to, that kind of thing. However, the manga is more streamlined, doesn't have a lot of fat on it, a bit more concise and to the point, and that's the feeling I got in Netflix's live-action adaptation. One Piece has been around since 1997, so naturally you can't have a live-action adaptation that'll be 100% true to literally over 1,000 episodes of anime and issues of manga. So the Netflix show might feel a little bit rushed to some fans, like they're trying to cram in a lot of info into a short amount of time. But it's not that bad, just go in with a logical mindset and you'll be fine. What Netflix's adaptation does extremely well, however, is hold true to the source material and what they present. Naturally, there is going to be some minor differences and changes, but ultimately they stick to the original really well. This impressed me wildly. I was not expecting this level of respect for the source material. I chalk this up to Matt Owens being a huge One Piece fan, knowing his shit and presenting the audience with a version of One Piece's creator, Eiichiro Oda, I think, rather than turn the show into what he deems necessary for these modern times, like some other live-action adaptations out there that need not be named. Nope, they made One Piece with heart, spirit, and respect, and as a result, it shines brilliantly in a dark sea of otherwise subpar or quite frankly crap adaptations. For starters, let's talk casting. In One Piece's manga SBS section, a Q&A column for fans to ask Oda questions, a fan asked what the Straw Hat Crew's nationalities would be if they were real. Oda's answers weren't written in stone, more just for reference, but it provided a decent foundation for the Netflix adaptation's casting, and I think they did a pretty damn good job. I'll just discuss the crewmates that are in the Netflix show here rather than all 10 that are in the manga/anime. The Netflix series hasn't gotten to everyone yet. For starters, we got the little big guy, Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, whose goal is to become king of the pirates. Oda states that Luffy would be Brazilian if he were in real life. In the Netflix show, he is portrayed by one Inaki Godoy, a Mexican actor. This is perfectly fine as Godoy looks the part and nails the role of Luffy flawlessly. He's charismatic, outgoing, carefree, but ultimately passionate. There isn't much criticism I have for this young actor, as I think he does a great portrayal of our beloved captain, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. Next, we've got perhaps most fans' favorite, Roronoa Zoro, the awesome, badass, cool, and collected first mate, whose goal is to become the world's greatest swordsman. He is portrayed by my very own United States' Makinyu, a talented young man with Japanese parents, one of which was Sonny Chiba, famed actor and martial artist. Makinyu was a perfect pick for Zoro in my opinion. For one, Oda claims that Zoro would naturally be Japanese if real, so we have an Asian actor with Japanese ancestry, and I'm assuming some martial arts experience given his father. Makinyu is able to maintain the stoicism and witty one-liners as well as the humorous and more lighthearted aspect of Zoro. But what I loved most was his ability to capture Zoro's sword style, mainly in his stances. In earlier seasons and issues of the manga and anime, Zoro has this crab stance that is somewhat iconic, I guess you could say, and Makinyu nails it. I was really impressed by his portrayal and can't wait to see more. Up next, we have Nami, who Oda states would be Swedish. Her goal is to create a map of the entire world. Portrayed by America's Emily Rudd, Nami in the Netflix adaptation is a solid representation of our beautiful red-haired navigator and thief. Upon watching the trailer, I was a bit skeptical. Rudd seemed to be a little bit rough around the edges for Nami, who, in the anime and manga, is a bit more manipulative and much smarter than most of the crew, with an air of confidence that Rudd didn't seem to possess in the trailer. That said, after watching the show, I think Rudd does a fine job, mainly because we are in the early stages of the One Piece story and Nami is at a very difficult part of her life. Rudd presents with this aura of bleakness, hiding a darkness within that seeps forth as the season progresses. Fans of the franchise will know, but for those new to One Piece, all reveals itself in time. So I understood the approach, and I will say that Rudd absolutely nails the help me scene. This scene was very powerful in the anime and manga, as it shows Luffy trusting Nami with his hat, as well as his loyalty to his crew and friends. It also shows Nami's trust in him after her stoicism falters and her wall breaks down, leaving her vulnerable and in need. This moment seals their bond as friends, and in the anime, Nami reminisces about it multiple times in the future. Rudd did this scene very, very well. My wife and I both felt the emotion and compassion oozing forth, and we loved it. Rudd's Nami then softens a bit as she joins the crew permanently. Well done. Then we got Usopp, the sniper and inventor of the crew whose goal is to become a brave pirate like his father. Oda doesn't give a specific country for Usopp's real-life origin, simply stating that he would be from an African nation. As a result, we have Jacob Romero Gibson taking on the role. And he looks the part, a black gentleman of a lighter skin persuasion with some short-length dreads and correct body type. I think Gibson did well portraying Usopp's comical delusions of grandeur and chronic lying. However, I think he could use a bit of work showing Usopp's cowardice. In the anime and manga, Usopp is a big-time scaredy cat. Any little sign of danger and he's screaming and crying and wanting to run for the hills. But generally, he always stays to fight and always backs his crew. This makes him one of the strongest characters in my opinion, as he keeps fighting despite his immense fear. However, I just didn't get that fear and cowardice from Gibson. Sure, he would try to talk the rest of the crew out of fights and instead try to get them to run away, but there was never really that aspect of him crawling on the ground in fear and shame that the early versions of Usopp in the manga and anime would present. That said, I think Gibson is a decent pick. I just think he has some growing pains. And it looks like he's the rookie of the cast with the least acting experience among the rest, so there's that. Overall, I think he's alright as Usopp. I just feel he could use some improvements in certain aspects. Lastly, we have Sanji, who Oda claims would be French. Portrayed by Spanish-British actor Taz Skylar, Netflix's Sanji was a really intriguing adaptation. Skylar definitely has the Sanji charm and portrays the dedication to his craft very well. I really enjoyed the fight scenes too, and respect not only the amount of training Skylar did to learn how to kick like Sanji and do his own stunts, but he was also learning how to be a chef, making lunches every day for the cast. Much respect. However, there are a few issues. For one, his accent is all over the place. Skylar, according to Wikipedia, was originally born and raised in Spain to an English mother from Yorkshire and a Lebanese father from Sierra Leone. He's a mutt like me. Eventually moving to England, he has an accent that mostly sounds English, but Skylar's accent also holds a mashup of other places. It's pretty unique and cool, actually. That said, in the show, it feels like he's trying to do French at times, but then you get the English weaving in there, and then even some other stuff, probably from his father's side. It can be somewhat off-putting, but it isn't a deal breaker, just a bit immersion breaking at times. Also, I never really got the feeling of his Sanji being the woman-chasing romantic that Sanji is in the manga and anime. Sanji loves women. This is a weakness of his, but also a strength at some points. He is at heart a romantic, and at times a pervert. Skylar didn't really give off that passionate of a vibe when it comes to women in Sanji. He was more on the charming romantic side rather than the drooling at the mouth, crawling on the ground, kissing feet side that the Sanji of the comics and manga is. But again, this is just the first season, and I chalk a lot of these criticisms up to growing pains. Given the respect the showrunners have for the source material, I suspect things will smooth out over the next season or so. I'm just being picky as a fan. I would like to give special shoutouts to Jeff Ward as Buggy the Clown and Stephen Ward, no relation, as Mihawk, the current world's greatest swordsman. These dudes nailed Buggy and Mihawk. Probably the best portrayals in the show in my opinion. They absolutely owned every scene they're in, and we just loved them. Perfect portrayals, loads of charisma and fun, just chef's kiss. The character that I was the least satisfied with, unfortunately, was that of Vincent Regan's Monkey D. Garp, a Marine Vice Admiral. In the anime and manga, Garp is arguably one of the most powerful characters in the franchise. He has this imposing gravitas, being a large, burly, immensely strong man despite his age. In the anime and manga, he is not a serious dude at all. He will take serious matters seriously, mind you, don't get that wrong, but his everyday demeanor is more casual, finding him always laughing at things, eating crackers, and teasing his superiors and subordinates alike. He's rough and gruff with those he trains in the Marines, but he has a constant moral and value system that he adheres to that finds him more warm-hearted than meets the eye. Overall, he is a very complex character and one who's extremely important to One Piece's various arcs. I just didn't get any of that from Regan. His portrayal was very stone-faced, serious, and stoic. There wasn't much charisma there. There is some underlying motives there for Garp that Regan mostly gets across well, but it's just the everyday demeanor and personality that's lacking in my opinion. It just doesn't feel like Garp, unfortunately. But like I said before, it could just be growing pains. I'm sure Regan isn't super familiar with the One Piece franchise, but perhaps the next season things will shift a bit in his portrayal. Who knows? But Garp is an amazing character in the franchise, and I didn't feel Regan did him justice. Other than that, the other characters are all pretty decent. I was a bit worried when I saw them race swap a few characters, being a man of the black persuasion myself, mother born in the Bronx, grandfather from Jamaica, grandmother from slave stock. I tend to hate when these big studios blackwash already established characters. My reasoning is they aren't genuine in these casting choices. It feels like pandering and virtue signaling to up their ESG score rather than hire on merit, and to me that's very insulting. Basically hiring someone solely for the color of their skin. With an original work, fine, have at it, but when it comes to pre-established characters that have decades-long history and we know what they look like, you're most likely not doing it for the right reasons. So when I saw that they made a few characters look like my mom that do not look like my mom in the manga or anime, I was a bit worried. But it turned out that it was fine. These were all just ancillary or minor characters such as Nami's sister, or sometimes it was for the better to be honest, such as making Lucky Roo of the Red Hair Pirates black. I mean, look at this dude, he's perfect and was awesome in the show. Ultimately, it was fine. I always say there's nothing wrong with having a show with an agenda behind it, as long as you don't have an agenda with a show behind it. So in Netflix's One Piece, it didn't feel force or agenda driven. The source material still came first. And that's all I ask. Now, the action scenes were pretty awesome, albeit a little bit heavy on the wires at times, but what are you gonna do? Most of all, the special effects were pulled off nicely. This is how you are supposed to make an anime adaptation. No holds barred. They took all the over-the-top craziness of the anime and manga and just rolled with it. Luffy does turn into his rubbery, weaponized self. Zoro does run around with a sword hanging out of his mouth. Garp does chuck cannonballs at people. They held true to the spirit of the anime and manga, and it was all the better for it. A big mistake live-action adaptations make is trying to make their version more realistic or believable. Anime is not supposed to be believable. Quite the opposite. It's a complete suspension of belief and a complete implementation of wild imagination. In Naruto, Sasuke sprouts wings that are made of hands. In Trigun, Vash's gun turns into an angel arm that blows up entire cities. These are fantastical works that are meant to be outlandish and ludicrous. Trying to turn them into something the audience can relate to is 1. Disrespectful to the source material, and 2. Disrespectful to your audience, as you are saying they are too stupid to decide for themselves what they may or may not enjoy. Netflix's One Piece treats the audience and the source material with respect. That's all a fan can ask for. We don't want perfection, but we want to strive for perfection. We want the studios or showrunners to at the very least try. That's it. We know things won't be 100% accurate because live action has limits and that's fine, but treat us and the source material with respect and you'll gain yourself a following. There's a reason Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy is considered to be the best trilogy out there by some, as well as the best adaptation by fans. Respect. And Netflix's One Piece very much respects you, so fan or not of the franchise, I highly recommend you give it a look. If you aren't a fan, just go in open-minded and with the logical thought process of this being an anime/manga adaptation. You won't be disappointed. So what do you guys think? If you've seen it, did Netflix's live-action adaptation hold true to the manga/anime? Do you agree or disagree with my assessment? Who's your favorite characters? Who's your most hated? What's your favorite arc? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and check out my other videos for your patient gaming needs. This has been Jarek Defiler. You all have a great morning, afternoon, evening, or night depending on where you are. And go enjoy some One Piece.